You're listening to I Feel For You. I'm Dionne, a creative coach, yoga, movement, meditation, teacher, student, human being, DJ, event sharer, blogger, podcaster, etc. Multifaceted human being, like all of us, right? Just doing our best in the world to show up, to be human, and hopefully learn something along the way. So in today's episode, we are exploring the Autumn Equinox, and I'm going to be sharing some self-care tips and rituals to help you transition and find balance. Isn't that what we're all looking for? Balance? The eternal quest. Today, I'm recording the show for you via an audio device, but also on a video, which means there's probably going to be bloopers that I'm going to have to leave in. And I'm recording this on a Friday afternoon. It's around 5:30. I can already hear the revs of pleasure at that Friday evening rush hour moment. So apologies if there's crass sounds other than my own voice. But we're just going to try it and see, because sometimes you just have to be brave and not worry about messing things up, because, you know, I'm a messy person. I think you know what I was going to say. Anyway, so the reason for me doing this podcast and sharing this with you is that over the years I've been collating my tips for people around this time of year, because I find it pretty potent. And you've probably seen in the past, if you've ever read any of my blogs over the last 15 years, you've probably seen me talk about the Autumn Equinox before, and I tend to make monster blog posts about it because I find it a really significant moment of the year, and I feel it helps to have some tips and advice to help people to transition. So although it feels a bit weird to talk about autumn, because I mean it's sort of a week before the autumn equinox now, it is almost upon us, and you might be able to notice subtle changes if you're in the northern hemisphere. Things like the winds picking up, the winds of change. So we're reaching this point of equal day and night and leaving behind the glorious and gluttonous summer that was, and entering this time that's full of shifts and transition as we head towards winter. So it's like this period of endings and beginnings. I don't know if you can feel that. I certainly can. So speaking of which, I have an announcement. So before we dive in, I'll share it with you because I'm not going to leave you hanging, but basically, I've freshly baked you a present right out of the oven, and I am using the month of October to focus on holding space for people in an exclusive online creative coaching group, essentially to support us to transition into the autumn season. So together, we'll be exploring how we can take care of ourselves and nourish our creativity. So it's a practice, there's a clue, and this is going to be an intimate group for those people who really want to commit to their wellness goals, but they tend to do better having some accountability and having buddies that are there who have your back. And so this isn't a boot camp thing, it's more like a love fest, darling. Did that sound weird? It sounded a bit weird. Okay, it's more of a space to be you and to do you bravely along with other people on the road. So it's a space for you to feel progress with your own wellness and self-care goals, to get really clear about that and to commit to them. And it's a space for you to nourish your emotional health, and for you to practice mindfulness and creativity, and for you to develop and deepen your own yoga and movement and self-care practice. This is Life Nourishment 101. If you're watching the video, it's a very awkward neck snapping moment going on. Spoiler alert. Anyway, it's all very exciting, and this really is going to be, it's so close to my heart, an intimate and nurturing space for good people. And it will be a combination, as you'd expect, of yoga and movement and meditation and wellness and creativity and self-care, with heaps of support from me and from others too. And this creative coaching group is very much a holistic one. It's not just one thing, it's lots of different things that interconnect, and that's hopefully going to be inspiring for you guys. And we're not interested in how to get fit in a month. It is not about that. So if you're looking for that, this ain't the place, sorry babes. But rather, this is a space that we can use to support ourselves, to instill self-care practices and commit to nourishing ourselves on every level. Another neck snap, as we move through the season, so that we might cultivate better attention to ourselves, and with that intention show up from a wholehearted place, grounded in feeling good, because I'm interested in feeling good. Are you? Yeah. So you don't have to do this alone. That's why I'm here, and I have prepared a curriculum for you that sounds very official and scary, like school. It's not like school. Unless you liked school, then it's like school. I don't know. There is a curriculum which is on my page, dionne.space. You can go there and read all about it. Really resisting being like a paper person. Anyway, that was one of my earlier jobs when I was young. Anyway, I'll go into all of the details in the page about the course, and I will be delivering this set curriculum to you over each week, along with tools to develop and advance your own practice. So I've recorded a series of videos for you to do in your own time. For example, there's also creative exercises for you to complete and explore, and also dollops of inspiration for when you just need to feel held and supported. And not only that, there's also a private and safe space community which I've created online that we can hang out in together. And it's a place where you can share and connect with others if you feel like it. And I'm going to be in there. I'll be all up in here on the regular, so you can ask me anything at all as it comes up. So I am there to support you. Yeah, and we can have conversations about the journey and share tips and support, and be reminded that we are in this together. There is a Rick Astley song in there somewhere, I think, anyway. So do expect humour, because what is life, had a way, without practicing joy as a tool for self-care and as a radical act of defiance and just living for it, babes. So I will link you in the show notes to all of the details in case you're interested, because there's limited places, and we start October 1st, and I'm really excited. Yeah, so this is episode 18, I believe, of the podcast. So head to ifeelforyoupodcast.com and you will see all the deets there. So let's get into it. My relationship with autumn is an interesting one, and I used to really, really struggle with this time of year, and that sad was real. And living in Norway and experiencing the extreme weather and darkness of winter was literally like living in an episode of Fargo, or the film or the series, just with more rain, if you've ever seen that. And I really, really struggled to find the light, quite literally. But experiencing my fair share of Norwegian winters really gave me the greatest gift. And that's to really appreciate this idea of creating light for myself and to embrace transitions. So I know that might sound really cheesy, or like a quote you'd see on Pinterest. And I do spend a fair amount of time on Pinterest, to be fair. But it's true. And I think it's good to remind ourselves that you can weather the storms of autumn and winter and the shifts and the turns in between. And in fact, any wild ride, be it a change in season or a massive life shift. But you have to start with yourself first. You know what I mean? So you know what I'm going to say here? It's about self-care again, but it's core to all of this because it's necessary. And you can read all the links to articles and magazines and blog posts that tell you, click here for the only 10 things that you need to do to get motivated, to find your pizzazz, or to get a job and make 10k, okay, 100k, or just to be happy this season. But it's really not gonna change anything unless it comes from you, babes. That is with your own reflections and considerations. Self-care is not a one size fits all thing. Haven't said that since the late 80s anyway. Thing. But there might be some stuff of value here that pings your pants today, which you might be able to adapt for yourself to get what you want, be that balance or contentment or a job, maybe not a job, but self-acceptance, etc. And this episode, which is also a monster blog post about the autumn equinox and the changes that we experience, is really symbolic because it's a massive moment in our year, in our calendar, and it can be applied to our lives whatever season we're in. So I'm going to be sharing some offerings and examples of things that you might explore for yourself. Creaky chair. Yeah, but see what works for you, and I really hope that it's inspiring for you and gives you some loving and hopefully ideas on how you can ride out transitions and find balance whatever the weather. So let's talk a bit about transitions. So the autumn equinox in the northern hemisphere occurs when the sun's equator lines up with the southern hemisphere. So the first day of autumn is the day this transition occurs. That's official, darlings, the equinox in a conch shell. So we're literally teetering on the cusp as the length of daylight and darkness become equal. So we experience two equinoxes, plural, per year. One as winter shifts to spring and the other as summer moves into autumn. So this year's autumn equinox will begin precisely, darlings, at 2:53 a.m. GMT on Sunday the 23rd of September. So if you're listening to this as this goes out, you've got like a week and a couple of days. So basically around now, we probably start to notice our days are beginning to get shorter and we start to shift towards winter with longer nights and darker days. So farewell to summer, my love. Goodbye to the lighter, more energetic season, a time when we're busy packing in loads of activities and probably outside a lot. Autumn, in contrast, offers a period of harvest. Things are dying off and coming to a natural end, and it's a time where we become more introverted and reflective and, well, just simply not as energetic as we were in the summertime. That's natural. So as the trees shed their leaves and go back into the earth, we too are also afforded the opportunity to draw in, to retreat, to reflect and to reconnect by releasing the stuff that we don't need. Because with endings also come new beginnings. We are part of a bigger cycle. Isn't that comforting? I think so. So I want to touch a little bit on autumn and the mind-body connection, because for me, this is why I do this work. So naturally we're connected to our environments, and this time of year is a potent one for contemplation, and there's visual symbolism all around. So if we take autumn leaves, for example, and their colours, they're this mix of ample reds and oranges and yellows and some greens, and these all represent the colours of the lower chakras in the body, which are synonymous with the more primal and downward moving energies via the root, sacral and solar plexus and heart. We ground in, baby. So perhaps you're noticing around this time of year that you're feeling unusually tired, or perhaps you're experiencing a chill, or finding yourself with sniffles, or your throat has got that slightly closed cave feeling, or maybe your lips feel a bit chapped, or your skin feels drier than usual. And there's this period around 1 to 2 weeks surrounding the equinox where there's this junk that's thrown out at us on a cellular level, which leads to symptoms like I've just described. So it's not unusual to experience any of those things. So as we get rid of the stuff that isn't useful for us, just like the leaves falling off the trees, we can make more room for goodness to move in. So there's like a deeper message through the symbolism of nature. Nature is king, right? So thinking about that, like the release of autumn and this downward flow of energy, letting go of the stuff that we don't need to hold on to anymore, and making room for the stuff that we need. Let's talk a bit about self-care, because I wanted to share some tips with you that help me find balance during this time of year as we're transitioning through the equinox. I feel like there should be some kind of jingle perhaps. And so I have a marimba which is broken because I sat on it and I broke it, so it doesn't sound very good. Let's have a no. Can we? This is terrible. You didn't sign up for this, did you? It's just... Oh, okay, that will do. There we go. So yeah, this isn't working. Let me put this down. Anyway, rest is number one, and for me, rest is so vital for self-care. It's vital for everything, for functioning on every level. And for me, working on getting more rest and basically doing the things that help me to feel more rested is key this time of year. So that includes attempting to uphold a daily meditation practice, which helps out my energy and stress levels. Also, avoiding too much coffee, and sugar, which I gave up refined sugar a few years ago. Some of you know this, and this isn't a diet thing. This is because I have a thyroid disorder, and do your research. But for me, just experimenting with loads of different stuff, including not eating refined sugar, helps me. So cutting down on that or removing that from my diet is important, especially this time of year where our immunity tends to be more compromised. And this doesn't mean that I deprive myself of things that I want. It's just that I become extra mindful in how I treat myself during this transitional time of year. So emphasis is on rest, and of course that affects my physical yoga practice. So that shifts to become one that seeks more stability. I want more grounding postures. I want to feel like rooted, during these winds of change. I also really enjoy twists at this time of year, and like exploring a lot of core work as well. I like that feeling of being supported from my core, from my center, feeling centered during the transitions. So I've got loads of free yoga videos. You probably know this. So if you feel like practicing with me, I have linked you in the show notes to a couple of practices. One of them is called Unwind and Realign with Twists. And that's a 40-minute practice, which I really hope helps you feel more connected to your center. And it's all about releasing tension and literally wringing it out, and hopefully creating space so that we can always be aware of where that center is. Because when you're pulled in lots of different directions, it's easy to feel a bit overwhelmed and a bit like, what's going on? I can't keep up, like what? So I made this practice for you for that reason. And there's another practice which is for those of you who, like me, you just feel more knackered more regularly around this time of year. And this is a 10-minute feel-good, luxurious yoga practice. It's all on the floor. It's all my favorite style of somatic movement. I love it. It's my daily go-to, and I hope you love it too. So go to the show notes, ifeelforyoupodcast.com or dionne.space/podcast to get the goods. So rest was number one. So now let's move on to other ideas for self-care. And I'm thinking a lot about the winds of change. And one of the most symbolic things for me at this time is really being aware of the cycles, and that with endings come new opportunities. So there are times of our lives that it's like the seasons, that we're more outward, and conversely, there are times of our lives where we retreat inward, or we need to go inward and find that gentle quietness. So we're always in this transitional state of finding balance. And I know I talk about it a lot, but I feel it's so important to remind ourselves balance is not static. It's not a destination. It's not this one place that we reach. Balance is something that we are always exploring. It's something that is never still or static. It's wobbling around all over the place and adjusting all the time. And if you think of like standing on one leg, like you could do this now. I'm not going to move too much because I'm like wired up, but if you stand on one leg and then like slowly start to close your eyes and just notice what your foot's doing, it's kind of crazy bananas. I've even made you a tutorial on tree pose in case that's useful. I'll link you to that in the show notes. That is just a kind of mindful meditative practice of one yoga posture, which I hope you find useful, because I want you to know and to remind yourself that it's okay, that balance isn't, that we're never going to reach this point of perfect balance, that it's perfectly imperfect and transitional, it's always in motion. And with that we might remind ourselves that we don't need to do it all, because we're already full, complete, perfect and abundant, and that we don't need to feel like we're behind, especially at this time of year, or that we're missing something. That instead, as we approach this season, that we can reflect on what we do have and be grateful for that. And also to perhaps start to appreciate our achievements if we are not doing that at present. That's a motorbike. That we can eat our pie and cake and be thankful for it. Maybe wrap ourselves up in some kind of cozy knit. I've got some inspiration on a Pinterest board I'll link to you. It's called winter cozy, which I kind of like to dabble in. I'm a big fan of knitwear. Anyway, maybe a reminder to take those country walks that we never got round to in the summertime, or if we're not out in the countryside, that we can pause on our way somewhere when we're rushing on our mission and remind ourselves to slow down a little, that it's okay for us to, sync up with the season. Maybe we pause to watch the squirrels as we're going about our business, or maybe make eye contact with someone non-creepily and realize that we're floating on a ball of earth in the middle of space, wearing meat suits together. So let's move on to another idea for self-care, another kind of, thought, and that is about letting things go, because it's also nice to take off some of the layers that are weighing us down, especially at this time of year, simply because they're heavy. And perhaps there's something that we might not be able to resolve in real life, and therefore writing it out to release it might be another way that's useful for us to look after ourselves. Maybe speaking to someone and sharing what's been difficult, just reaching out. And if that feels possible and safe for us to do so, of course. And of course, worth it energy-wise, because, conserving energy is good this time of year. Reaching out for help when we need it is something that I encourage all of us to do, and also recognize that it's flipping hard to do that too, but worth it, because when we do it, like the weight can be lifted and shared, and we can lean on somebody. You know what I mean? Also, thinking about letting things go, maybe that looks like changing a pattern that's not so helpful for you right now. Maybe cutting out the stuff that isn't making us feel good so that we can enjoy more of the sweet stuff. Yes. And this is a time for rebalancing after this more intense season of summer. We're now starting to turn inwards and maybe become more attuned to the changes, more sensitive to what's going on, and therefore we've got this chance to release the past and maybe look forward with more clarity and prepare for the coming winter. And when I say release the past, I don't mean in a just let it go, get over it. I don't mean that. I'm not about that life. Well, if that works for you and that that feels easy to do, go for it by all means. But what I mean is you can create your own framework for this. We can let something go maybe that feels accessible for us to do so. Maybe it's just simply letting go of the summertime, like rather than longing and wishing we were somewhere else, to instead accept that, okay, the summer's not here anymore, I'm not going to go swimming, but I can curl up with a good period drama that is historically accurate, but also enjoyable. I'm not selling that one, am I? I can curl up with a Tom Cruise film. This is what I do in hotels. They always show Tom Cruise films. Tom Cruise and Jennifer Aniston, honestly, if you're ever in a hotel somewhere late at night, anywhere in the world, I believe, this is the theory that Shettle and I have, they will be showing Jen or Tom. I don't know, we spoke about it. Anyway, I'm not going to go on with that. But yeah, let go of what you can, what feels safe to let go of, and trust. Sometimes I do it like with my wardrobe, like looking at all of the things I've acquired from car boot sales. The other day, I realized most of my wardrobe is made up of stuff that I bought in bin bags full from car boot sales over 16 years ago. And I thought, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. I don't know. Anyway, letting go isn't always easy, but we can make it easier. We're in this together. So with that, I'm thinking a lot, or contemplating a lot, about releasing resistance around transitions. So through any transition in life, in this case, from summer to autumn, the body can get depleted. So in the summer, our energy peaks and we tend to obviously have more beans. Some of us, not everybody. And in the summer, if you think about nature, things are ripe and in bloom. And then as we start to move towards autumn and the weather shifts, the wind increases, the temperature cools, and we see the leaves start to release from the trees. And there's this movement, this energy of movement towards things dropping back towards the ground to repeat the cycle all over again. And so even though things seem to be ending, really it's simply just a transition. So if you think about the trees, even though the leaves are dropping off, it seems like the trees are dying, but actually what's going on is deep beneath the surface, beneath the earth, there is all of this energy of regeneration and growth going on that we can't see. And it's the same for us. We've got this opportunity to do so. Our energy also shifts throughout the year and during the months as well, and maybe the days too. We might notice these rhythms or these cycles of energy that we have or don't have. And so it's important to honor that and to honor our own seasons and our own cycles. So to take care of you, which is the name of my new course, Take Care of You Autumn. Okay, side note, I'm really not good at this plugging business, but yeah. Take care of you, because autumn is drying, and the joints tend to get poppy, and like they're clicking and stuff. I don't know if you noticed that in yourself, but in Ayurveda it's the season of Vata, the Vata dosha, and a dosha is simply an energy or a type, and I go into that heaps back in episode 12 of my podcast. I'll link that for you in the show notes. So basically Vata is comprised of the elements of wind and space, and ether, which is like this unknown entity, this mysterious otherness. And at best, the dosha of Vata is a great creative energy. It's charged and sparked full of expressive brilliance. But if Vata is imbalanced, it carries energy that's kind of all over the place, bit unstable, a bit ungrounded, and physical side effects include things like insomnia, stiffness, aches and pains, wind, and anxiety. I don't know if that's ringing any bells for you around this time of year. So we're all comprised of a mix of doshas in our bodies, and our mind and our spirit. It's like an energetic thing. So we're a mix of them, but we might find that around this time of transition in particular, and throughout autumn, that our Vata increases or dominates our system. So that means that our immunity might feel a bit compromised as our energy's scattered. So, when you're a bit all over the place, let's say you're worrying about something or a lot of stuff, it's difficult for you to kind of get one thing fixed and sorted, right? Because your energy is in so many different places. So it's about bringing everything back into center so that you can, center yourself, come back to yourself. You know what I mean? That's why I made the course, basically. But anyway, so our immunity can feel compromised and because our energy is scattered, and autumn tends to be the season where loads of people get a bit under the weather. I don't know about you, but as I walk around, there are so many people sneezing and like they've got the sore throats that are starting up. This period around the equinox, like I mentioned earlier, like 1 to 2 weeks around the equinox, and bear in mind we've got a week and a couple of days at this point as I'm recording, so it's kind of like we're going into it now. This is where we start to really see the changes. As things change, we'll begin to notice the signs around us, and maybe we've experienced it ourselves where we're feeling a little bit under the weather and it's kind of crept up on us. So it can be a really great idea to restore the body at this time. So things that we can benefit from include routine, repetition, establishing a consistent rhythm for ourselves, grounding ourselves, being warm, and deeply nourishing ourselves. Self-care 101. Again, the reason why I'm focusing October on supporting other people to create this for themselves and use the tools that I'm offering to support their systems and to feel well, to feel good. So if you're interested in learning about Ayurveda and finding balance as we transition to the autumn season, my new course and group coaching program, Take Care of You Autumn, might be right up your street. I don't know. Take a look. I don't know, Dionne.space maybe. Anyway, so let's move on to rituals, because I love a ritual, many of you know, and I really believe in people finding and using rituals that work for them rather than it be this like one size fits all. So finding rituals that work for you can be a great way to glide through transitions, because they can be anchors that help to keep you connected and focused. So for the equinox, balance is a common theme, as is letting go, as we spoke about earlier. So my own rituals change throughout the year, but I always tend to include certain things. Like if you've heard my summer morning rituals podcast, you will know about many of those things that I've been doing for many, many years, and maybe slightly changing them depending on the season. So I tend to always do my oil pulling first thing in the morning. So in the autumn, at the moment, I'm still oil pulling with coconut oil, and I'll probably change to the sesame oil, the more we get into autumn. And then I've been having like warm water and lemon to drink afterwards. I'll take a yoga and meditation practice before or after those things. And then if it's a good day, there'll be morning pages up there. And then the most important ritual of all is no email until I've made space for some or all of those rituals first. So in the summertime, I tend to be a bit more like chill about that, but I find in the autumn, I need to amp up my level of self-care. Not only because I have a thyroid disorder and, you know, I am also of the Vata constitution in Ayurveda, but just because it is a time of year that most people tend to start getting depleted. There's lots going on, and I want to just really look after myself as much as I can. I'm not saying that to scare anyone at all. That's just about me and what I need. So it's important for you to think about what works for you always. So I've got some other ideas for you for rituals with an autumn theme. So I'll just run through some of them for you, because I'm probably going to do another podcast. I've planned one that's going to talk about how I'm approaching autumn, not only with my rituals but also with work and plans, and just how I'm using or how I'm planning to use my autumn month, my intentions and so on, that I hope you will find useful. So an idea for a ritual is, should I use the marimba? Shall we go? I'm pulling a screw face now because I'm just going to skip the marimba because it's annoying. Maybe some castanets. I don't have. Anyway, you see, this is Vata energy in action, imbalanced. Let's bring it back. Right, getting outside and syncing with nature. So notice the changes and the shifts around you. They might be subtle, but a really nice way to stay present during the transitional time of year. So you might do things like stimulate your senses with smells and colours. Maybe take a pad and a pen out with you if you don't already, and find a little bit of space in your day. Maybe it's just a minute. You give yourself 1 minute or 5 minutes if you can, or 10 even, to sketch or write about or scrapbook old leaves, or maybe make a mandala. I'm a fan of that. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen, like, when autumn comes around, one of my favorite things to do is collect all the different colored leaves and make a beautiful mandala. Beautiful to me anyway, gives me pleasure. So there's an idea for you. A ritual might be using the light in some way. So perhaps you're lucky enough to have a log fire or a wood burner. If not, plan a date to visit someone who does. And if it's cold enough, maybe spend the evening slow living. That's become a thing, hasn't it? I'm not laughing at it. It's just interesting, right? It's kind of trendy. I don't know, who knew? Anyway, maybe you sit for an evening watching the fire and keep your computer and TV and phone screens off instead of, putting your energy outward. Turn inward and meditate with the helpful use of the flames. Very nice way to spend an evening. Maybe you use light in a different way. You could use candles. And it wasn't until I moved to Norway that I realised how precious light was. And I was amazed at how beautiful every house was in the autumn and winter. And people decorate their houses with all kinds of lights and stuff during this period. I say all kinds of lights. Up until a couple of years ago, it was like only very classy, whitey, like off-white light. But now I'm starting to see people using coloured lights, which is interesting. But anyway, it's all very cosy. There's, the name for it too, kusli. And it's just that Norwegians celebrate the cooler seasons like no other place on earth that I've ever experienced. So they don't grumble when the rain comes along, and you'll be told there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. And instead of grumbling about the cold or the rain. Instead, they make their inside spaces really cozy, and so it's nicer to be there and spend time indoors and really make the most of it. And I think that's a really good way to go. It's really inspiring, especially as the nights draw in, and it's just so much nicer to be in a cozy space that's really beautiful and kind of luxurious in many ways, add blankets, add your lights and so on, snacks, etc. And in fact, Norwegians do the cooler season so well that I made a big old blog post about it if you haven't already seen it. And it's called What Norway Taught Me About Surviving Winter. I'll link that for you in the show notes in case you're interested in getting very excited for the cold seasons, as well as making you an entire podcast episode dedicated to Norway versus UK, the art of chill. And that's where I share the valuable lessons I learned about slowing down to embrace the darker seasons. Hashtag slow living. Hashtag the art of slow living. There we go. So if you're interested in those things, I will link you in the show notes. I hope they are inspiring for you because, yeah, I really admire Norwegians and their approach to syncing with the seasons and syncing with nature. It's up my street. But I've always loved a candle. Thanks for that, Mum. And having a ceremonious outing to sniff out a plethora of them is basically one of my dream rituals, which is a bit weird, I know, but there you go. But when I've got the budget, I'll treat myself to one and, yeah, go to like my local health food shop where they do some good soy-based candles and indulge. And it's a really simple way to create your own home ritual, celebrating the light and the dark because we need them both, right? So also using light, another ritual that connects to candles is Trataka meditation, which you might have come across, which is a great way to practice letting go and releasing. And essentially all it is you being in the dark room with a candle and looking at the flame without blinking, or without blinking very much. So this light from the candle, it's great for so many reasons. Not only does it give us a focus point, but it's also a practice of us steadying and centering ourselves. So if you've ever been to one of my community yoga and movement classes or a retreat or a workshop, P.S. I think there's 2 spaces left for the autumn workshops in Bergen. The end of this month, really excited. Anyway, back to back to focus. Here we go. Vata energy. If you've ever been to one of my sessions, you know that if we're ever exploring balance, if we're ever feeling a bit scattered, practicing balance is a really great way to bring your attention to one place. But not only that, using your focus, so looking at one thing, can be a really helpful way to do that. So rather than, especially in this day and age, we've got a phone where there's lots going on, maybe we're scrolling and taking in so much information in a matter of seconds. Instead, finding something to focus your attention on. So this Trataka meditation can be a really nice way to do that, because you can use the flame to just look at. There's nothing else you can see in the room. And then you can kind of just let your eyes water. And then, salty tears, very cleansing. Most of us, myself included, always feel great after a good cry. I say always, sometimes it's not a nice feeling to cry, is it? But you know what I mean. Like, it's sort of like a release of tension. That's a great SWV album. Anyway, have you been getting my playlists lately? I've been sharing quite a lot of them from my Spotify account and in my weekly digest, which is my love letter that you get delivered straight to your inbox. I don't know where this is coming from, actually, because I'm usually really bad at sharing these things, or I forget and I'm not very good at it. But here we go, it's practice, right? So yeah, my playlist, you can find me on Spotify. My handle is Dionne, M-I-N, Dionne. Or get access to my Spotify via my website, dionne.space. I usually have a playlist up. I always have a playlist up on my blog, so just head to my blog. And also I release kind of secret playlists, not to sound pretentious, just, I've got thousands, so putting them all out there is just too overwhelming, I think, for people. So I kind of, if I think of a playlist that I might think is appropriate, or I make one up, especially for the people in my mailing list that week, I'll plop it in there. So if you want to be on the digest, head to dionne.space/digest. So let's talk about gratitude and letting go. Not going to sing because I haven't seen that film, but you know. Yeah. So a reminder, in case you didn't already know this, that you are full and complete as you are. And even if your life situation is not ideal right now, there is still room for appreciation for all that you are and all that you have. So a gratitude list can be a really nice place to start putting that into practice. So if this feels especially difficult, try starting small. That's advice for anything in life, you know. Don't get overwhelmed. Just take a little bite, a little chew. And I like to try gratitude practices in the evenings at the end of my day and run through all the positives, however seemingly insignificant they are. And I think if you try that out, you'll find your flow. Like put a little alarm in for yourself, or maybe that's a bit stressful, I don't know. Keep a little notebook by your bed and just list them down, I don't know. Or do it first thing in the morning when you get up, you know, before the noise creeps in. And so if you're well versed with gratitude, maybe you can explore whether there's anything you can let go of. So putting that letting go into practice. So there's energy in owning stuff, and it can be so freeing to give things away. Just like the autumn leaves, and just like my car boot sale wardrobe. It's true. So you might try writing out your own gratitude list, followed by another list. Hell, what the hell? We all enjoy a good list, don't we? Of what you want to let go of. And this is also a great practice to do around the full moon. And feel free to add candles and crystals and a Prince themed puja as you like. More on that later. Maybe not the Prince puja, but yeah. And here's some suggestions of things to let fall away. I'm doing those inverted commas if you're not watching the video of this. Okay, so one thing, how about self-sabotage, you guys? Should we let that go? Are you with me? 2, your inner critic. Let them out the door, window, fire escape if you're feeling particularly mean. 3, negative and unhelpful voices and behaviours. Get out of here. 4, stuff you don't need. What's one thing you can get rid of? 5, why did I write this? That dogged Boyzone poster circa 1996. Look, no shade here, but I was never a Boyzone fan. I'm not a fan, like I didn't feel anything. Look, I'm sorry if this offends someone, but you know, why didn't I say Jodeci poster? I wouldn't let that go though. That's the point, isn't it? Any other Jodeci fans out there? No? Okay. Should we move on? Let's talk about grounding stones. So many of you know I'm a big fan of getting my crystals out. That's not a euphemism. And I realise it's not for everyone, but for me, crystals are a powerful aid, and they remind me that we're all comprised of energy and giving off and receiving all kinds of stuff at any one time. So my stones offer me a focus for how I want to feel, be it more energized or more grounded or more protected or cleansed and so on. So there's a really great book called The Book of Stones by Robert Simmons. I will link you, don't worry about it. This is not sponsored. Again, I didn't mention that earlier, but you know. And also, if you want some like visual inspiration, come join me on Pinterest. I've made a board which is one of my favorites, and it's called Vitamins and Minerals. I'll put the link to my Pinterest in the show notes, so if you're on there, do come say hi. Let's like collaborate on some boards, because I love it, live for it. Okay, let's talk about getting grounded using essential oils. So my go-to concoctions for grounding scents include frankincense, clary sage, patchouli, bergamot, and geranium. Lavender is also great for calming too. And if you've ever been to any of my workshops or events, you'll know I tend to travel with like, I'm that person. I'll travel with my kit. I'll travel with essential oils and stones and, you know, sprays and concoctions and creams and all that. I was going to say shebang. Can I say that? Yeah, I can. And like for, you know, ever since I started my yoga practice, I like to have these tools at my disposal because I find they help me feel more grounded. They help me have a focus for my attention and my intention. So I've been collecting essential oils for many, many, many years, and I use them in all sorts of ways. I mix them with other oils and I put them in the bath. So important to dilute your essential oils. Don't put pure ones in the bath. I used to use them in an oil burner, but I don't anymore because it depends on the compatibility. You've got to do your research. And I also use essential oils on my yoga mat, which is a bit cheeky, but I do. But yeah, do always dilute your essential oils, especially if they're going to go anywhere near your skin. Okay, so just treat them with respect. Plant power, yeah. And if you're looking for a good book on essential oils, it's a little bit dated. Like, I'm old school. I've had it for decades, but I just really enjoy it. It reminds me of an almanac. Am I saying that right? Did you used to have one of those growing up? It's like proper old school, how to blah, blah, blah. Anyway, there's a book called The Fragrant Pharmacy by Valerie Ann Warwood. And I still give this book away as gift. I've been doing it for years. I like to give it as a gift to people. Again, it's not a sponsored link, post, book, but I feel like I'm missing a trick here somehow. Maybe I should, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about massage as, a ritual. So massage can be a great way to ease out tension. We probably know that. And we might find that in the mornings, especially around this time of year, our joints are a bit more cracky, poppy, creaky. That's a sign of vata in the system. So a nice way to combat that, or to support your system, is to start your day with some gentle movements so that you can get things flowing again. So you can try some simple hip and shoulder and wrist circles in different directions. You could also try rubbing or massaging the skin around your elbows and your knuckles and your knees, but don't leave out your feet because they could probably use some extra love around this time of year. And use some warm oil if it's appropriate. That can be a really nice way to go. And I really love almond oil, always have, probably always will. But again, you might use sesame oil if you're looking for something a bit heavier. And this is really nice to do before you go in the shower in the autumn time. It's a really nice ritual. So you could oil up your joints. So put the oil on, rub it in, give yourself a massage, then get in the shower and then wash it off. Great. Hopefully you're going to feel moisturized and hydrated after all that. Or if not, just, loved by yourself. Love on yourself. But also not only the mornings, but pre-bedtime is also a great time for massage. And it's also a really lovely treat and helps to settle the nervous system. And in the evening, every night, I've already started doing this, even though we're kind of we're reaching that point of the equinox. I've been massaging my hands and my feet. If you've got someone that can do that for you as well, that's like an added bonus. But love on yourself, give yourself that nourishment and that gorgeousness. Very relaxing. And you might also try, in addition to that, in the evening, resting some like an eye pillow or like maybe a blanket over your eyes to help kind of give some weight and some like a weight over your eyes that will help you to settle, sort of using this area around the pituitary to slow down, to wind down, to give signs to your nervous system like, guys, it's time to chill. Also, it can be really nice to rest pillows or like heavier blankets on the thighs when you go to bed around this time of year. But I just use cushions from Harold. That's the name of my sofa, and that works just fine. So there don't have to be rules around massage, just do what feels good. And I do have a video actually of me using my good old tennis balls as a massaging tool. Again, if you've ever been to a class with me in the last 10 years or so, you'll know my tennis balls very well. So there's a video that I made a few years ago. If you're interested in seeing that, I'll put the link for you in the show notes. So this time of year, letting go of what is heavy is encouraged so that you can become lighter. And with that, I'm thinking a lot about how we can be more effective with where we put our energy. So a physical manifestation might be, as we spoke about earlier, having a clear out. Not only do I like to clear out things in my wardrobe when I can bear to part with loving items of clothing that I got from the car boot sale. It's like that moment where Whoopi Goldberg is in Ghost. It is Ghost, right? Where she has the check and she's supposed to like donate this check of a lot of money and she's handing it over to this good cause and she just really struggles to let it go. That's me with some of the like old clothes. Do you know the struggle? Anyway, aside from clearing out things in my wardrobe, I also like to revamp my stationery, for example. So things like this sounds so basic, but for me this makes a really big difference for some reason. So in my workspace, I will go through like all my pens, a lot of pens, all my coloured gel pens, because I'm that person, all my mild liners and so on, and just like check if they're working. If they're not working, get rid of them, because you know I have a habit of just loving pens too much, and then I'll keep them because it's like, it's that nice pen that I got from this place. And you know, anyone else out there just got a stationery issue? It can't just be me, I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, if you are focusing on clearing out your wardrobe, maybe you can make an event of not only clearing out the stuff that you don't need, but perhaps thinking about transitioning your wardrobe, darling. So maybe getting your clothes ready for the autumn cously. So bringing out the knits and the ribbed tops and the roll necks and the tights. I just love it. I love the autumn fashion moments, darling. So you don't need a new wardrobe, and you know, I'm not lecturing, but you know, you probably don't need a new wardrobe, because probably what you could use is just spend some time with what you already do have and find the things that you love and maybe experiment with new looks, babes, you know, layer them up. Get some inspiration from Drag Race. I mean, when is Drag Race not inspirational? Is that a sentence? I don't know, I'm sorry about this, but yeah, I realize there might be some frowns from people at this part of the podcast, thinking that I'm somehow implying that how you look is important, but what I'm actually saying is, I mean, it's not bad to enjoy an aesthetic, it's not bad to enjoy how you look, or you know, putting looks together and enjoy clothes or dressing for pleasure. For me, it's about a feeling, and that for me is key in everything. So how do your things make you feel? Do they make you feel overwhelmed? Is it stressful in the morning when you get up and you need to get dressed and get to work quickly? Is the answer yes? Okay, so what can you do about it? What can you clear out? How can you make it more easeful? Do you know what I mean? Give something away, feel better about, you know, donating some clothes to the clothes bank. I don't know, like, yeah, maybe think about that. You're probably already thinking about that, but yeah. So also with regards to letting things go, checking your relationships and where your energy goes is also vital. So are you feeling the way you want to feel with the people in your life? Are there any energy leaks or drains? I'm giving you, it's not really a side eye, it's more like a checking on you kind of look. I probably just look really scary. I don't know, I can't see myself. I haven't got the video screen up, so I'm sorry. However this turns out. Are there any energy leaks or drains? Maybe see to that, babes. Unfollow, block if necessary, mute buttons are useful, ignore, do what you need to do. Life hack: you don't have to be friends with people that you don't like, so protect your energy. And of course, there is a podcast episode that I made for you about just that too, in case you need some advice and some support. And it's episode 8 of the I Feel For You podcast, and it's called Do You Boo? This one's for the people pleasers. Look after your space, nurture those who you want in your life, maybe plop them on a gratitude list, say. I'll link the show for you in the show notes. So moving on, a reminder that we are the stars. I know, now I'm singing songs. Actually, isn't that a great Kendrick song, like from the Black Panther soundtrack? I'm going to have to look for it. Obviously, I'm making a playlist for you for this podcast episode. You know, it goes without saying, darling, so make sure you check the show notes for that. But there is no getting away from it. We are all comprised of and from nature. We are the stars and the earth and the sea and space. But sometimes we forget about it or become distant from it. And I'm always astounded at how deeply affected I feel by the moon, for example, or by going to the seafront or up a mountain. And for centuries, we humans have found connection to something bigger than ourselves through nature, whether that's simply being, receiving perspective of our place in the landscape or universe, or through a spiritual connection. And a really good example of this is this, there's a brilliant video, I'm going to link it for you in the show notes, and it's of this cool serpent shadow that runs, is it up or down Chichen Itza in Mexico? Have you seen that? No, if not, head to the show notes. It's really cool. It happens during the equinox, and yeah, I think it's a great visual of nature and this kind of very poignant spiritual moment of remembering our connection to nature. But whatever your beliefs, nature is a wonderful way to remember yourself, to appreciate and celebrate transition, change and cycles. And autumn is a time when many trees shed their leaves, when hibernation preparations are in effect. Things die off and become something else, and the energy captured through photosynthesis in the leaves transitions to become nourishing food for the ground. So although autumn isn't as an extreme season as the spicy heat of summer or of the often bleak winter time, it's a colourful, very visible transitional one, which is an amazing reminder of our place in this universe. So onwards then, rise and shine. So I always recommend going to bed a little bit earlier and waking up a little earlier at this time of year to get in tune with the rhythms of the autumn season. So starting to slow down when the sun starts to set where possible, because, you know, we have jobs, right? Many of us. And that can help us align more with the season. But of course, in real life, with real jobs and duties, it's not always possible to meet our primal rhythms, but we might try and do it in subtle ways. So going to bed a bit earlier than we do normally is a good place to start, even if it's just by 5 minutes every few days. But if you head to bed a little earlier and you start to create a habit and a rhythm for yourself, maybe you can find it easier to get up a little bit earlier too, and having some space at the start of your day to appreciate that light that we spoke about earlier. Maybe just to have a cup of tea, or maybe to start a meditation practice with the space that you created for yourself. Maybe you can go out for a walk, a morning walk if time allows, or maybe go to some dog or cat meetups in real life or on YouTube if that works for you and you know you're my people. So slowly ease into your day rather than getting up, jumping out of bed like, yeah. I mean, maybe you're that kind of person, but as the the day start and the night start to cool. Maybe it's harder to get out of bed. So having that extra space in the morning to just have luxury time to slowly ease yourself into the day can be a really nice way to help you sync with the season. So autumn is different to summer, and in the summer, maybe we feel because the sun is up for longer, maybe the brightness of the room naturally wakes us up and gives us more energy. As the darkness starts to come, to greet us more frequently in the autumn, and there's less energy, maybe we can allow ourselves to slow down and, take our time and not have to do that rush Paula Abdul moment at the beginning of the day. So maybe a yoga practice could be an idea in the morning if you're into that. I've made one for you called Get Unstuck and Reconnect to Yourself. It's one of my favorites. I really hope you enjoy it. I'll put the link in the show notes for you. And so with that, let's think about adjusting to time. So when I'm trying to get into a new sleeping habit, I tend to leave the curtains open, not for an audience, mind you, but rather so that in the morning my body can naturally adjust to the sunrise. And as a side note, I realized that in Norway, people often leave their curtains open. Is this a weird thing to talk about on a podcast? Maybe, but it was one of the things I first noticed when I moved to Norway, and I loved it. Am I painting a weird voyeuristic picture of myself? I don't know, but it's so nice. I don't know, it just felt really open in some ways, very closed in others, very open in others, you know what I mean? So if you are, for example, a commuter, maybe you're commuting to London or you're commuting to your nearest city. I know I got some peeps listening who commute to New York for work every day. So maybe you're going into the big city and maybe you have to get up before the sun actually rises at this time of year or later in the autumn. Maybe you can use a different tool that helps you to wake up easier, because obviously leaving your curtains open won't help. So have you explored something like an LED light that replicates sunlight, for example, gives you some good energy and helps you to wake up naturally? Just an idea. I know they do them online. Have a look, maybe go into some shops, test them out. I don't know. Little story for you, story time moment. Living in Norway where, barely much light, and I lived in a place that was in the mountains, so when there was light it was so limiting. By the time the sun actually got over the mountains, at the darkest point of the year, there was like 3 hours of light. Don't know how I did it. I'm brown, bear in mind I'm brown, so I need I need more sunlight. So in these times when it was really tricky, when it was super dark, I remember looking at these lights and, I had no money, babes. Like, money was tight as hell, like tight to eat, let alone buy one of those LED sad light things. So I used to try and find them in shops. I couldn't find any other than one place that was mostly closed most of the time. But then I had this, I feel like I'm calling myself out now and I'm going to get into trouble, but I don't care. But I heard about this like meditation group in this crazy mansion house that was opposite the flats where I lived. And I went along once and they had one of those lights in there. And I didn't love the meetup group, but what I loved about it was that they gave you a blanket and exposed you to this light while you did their activities, or didn't, sat it out, whatever. But yeah, so that's what I used to do, like as a means of survival, because it was so dark and cold and I really needed some vitamin D. I used to go there once a week just to get my stocks up. Do you know what I mean? So babes, do what you can. Even if you got no money, there is a way. Email me for some more tips if you're stuck, especially if you're in Norway and you're brown and you're struggling extra. Anyway, syncing with the seasons is really important. And thinking about that, we might choose to eat more seasonally and locally where possible. So this time of year, earthy vegetables are, actually it's not even this time of year, they're in my Joy Club all year round. And as I am mostly Vata, my Ayurvedic constitution is mostly Vata, grounding foods are great for me most of the time. So although I love a hearty salad, it's only going to take me so far into autumn, even if I'm adding like root vegetables to it, even if I'm adding like more dense grains, black rice, or like more quinoa and, you know, more grounding stuff. But before we start heading down strict diet rules, which I am so anti, you would not believe, I really recommend you do you first and foremost. Don't listen to what people are saying that you should do. Okay, that's a double negative, isn't it? But yeah, trust your own inner voice, but also do your research. Then on top of the research, test it out on yourself. You know what I mean? And I've written about the yoga / wellness food thing that is really weird and that I've never understood. I feel that I really need to do a podcast on this because there's so many misconceptions and so much bullshit out there that is actually quite worrying and scary and actually makes me really angry, because I find it dangerous to be telling people what to eat and what not to eat. I don't know how much I'm going to say about that here, but I don't know. Do you want me to do a podcast on this stuff? I don't know. I'm going to link you to two blog posts because one was not enough and now I'm snapping my neck. Sorry, I shouldn't do that for the mic. This is my mic, by the way, if you're watching on the video. And if you're hearing, you can hear this little ASMR treat. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Let me rein this in. Okay, I'm going to link you to 2 blog posts that I've written about the yoga wellness food thing. So if you're interested in some of my thoughts, just the kind of surface level thoughts, go there. And if you're interested in me making a podcast kind of talking more about this stuff, let me know. Like, talk to me in the show notes or find me somewhere in the socials or whatever. I'm usually on Instagram at the moment. Dionne7_ is my handle. But yeah, I do also recommend getting support from professionals, you know? So nutritionists, doctors, if you've got a good doctor. And I learned that the hard way when I moved to Norway as a vegetarian. It didn't go well. I thought I was getting rickets. So I don't say that to scare you, but rather just to remind you that just like nature, your body is an amazing ecosystem and it's all about balance and getting the right amount of nutrients, fat, energy and minerals for your body, not like everyone's body is the same. We're all different. We're the same, but we're different. You know what I mean? So you got to respect that, and it's going to change. Yeah, what you need is going to probably be different to someone else. So yeah, it's going to differ depending on your constitution, your environment, how you spend your days, like what you do with your life, how much stress you're dealing with, what kind of ailments or conditions you're living with. So I really urge you to take care of you. So turning in, we're drawing in now, guys. Appreciate you being here. And if you go to the show notes, there is a very beautiful picture of Prince for this section of of this piece. So do head over there to enjoy that. But yeah, turning in. So in some versions of yoga philosophy, I'm going to move my Prince picture now because it's very distracting. In some versions of yoga philosophy, pratyahara refers to a folding in or turning in of the senses. And it's kind of like a way to rein in the mind from all the distractions and the noise. Whether you need that or not, I don't know. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me this far. So letting yourself unplug and replenish is a way that you can practice pratyahara, so turning in. And I'll link you to a bit more on pratyahara if you're interested in yoga philosophy. If not, skip it, whatever. And that's one strain of yoga philosophy, so you know. But for me, turning in, or like turning in looks like adjusting the space that I practice in at home so that I'm in a more cocoony phase. So when I get up in the morning and I have my yoga and movement and meditation practice, at this time of year, I enjoy having the curtains closed. I kind of embrace that I embrace less of the light, which sounds a bit bonkers in a way, but I kind of want to feel like I'm in a womb space. And I set up my crystals and my cards in an altar near my mat. That's kind of usual. I'll light a candle. That's a really nice thing to do during my practice at this time of year. It's too warm in the summer, but now I really embrace practicing with a candle and like adding loads more blankets and cushions and basically wrapping myself up like a sausage in a blanket for meditation. I almost said a pig in a blanket, but could be both, I don't know. I like kind of walking around cocooned in a blanket most times of the day. You get the gist, but creating space to be solitary and space to process and space to space out and daydream and read and write and to go slow. That's a good Haim song, isn't it? Used to play that in class. It's a good one. I'll add it to the playlist. But yeah, go slow, and at this time of year, embrace taking your time and tread gently and give yourself time to adjust. And don't feel bad about taking time to adjust, or if you struggle with this whole balance thing, especially during transitional times of the year. Sips tea. That's actually cold coffee. Ooh. It's a bit late in the day. This is not going well with my self-care rituals for autumn actually, but there we go. But yeah, as we start to turn towards this slower pace of the year, I think there can be a tendency for us to still feel we can hammer things out like it's still summer or spring and we've got that kind of energy in us. And I think it's the perfect time of year to actually reject that where possible and to slow down where we can. We might not be able to do it in our jobs right now. We might not be able to do that in our families or out in the world getting to places, but there are ways that we can find space to slow down. And that's basically why I created Take Care of You Autumn, which is this new online creative coaching group, and that's running throughout the month of October. We're going to start 1st of October, babes, end on the 31st. Poignant times. And this is really a space for people who want to be supported through this transitional time with real life tools and accountability for their wellness goals. So autumn is a time when lots of people tend to feel under the weather, as we spoke about earlier. And as I said, there simply isn't the same energy of the summer because the seasons are shifting. So we might find that we're a little bit imbalanced, or maybe we experience that imbalance by feeling that we're always in a state of catching up and firefighting our to-do lists, for example. Maybe we're feeling frazzled by the busyness and we're sacrificing the most important thing, which is our own well-being. Because if we're not well, nothing else is running to the best of its ability in the best way that it can. So I've seen this cycle repeat itself over the years. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it before I started paying real attention and using intention to create habits and self-care practices to help me through these times. And I've also seen it over the years with many of my clients, and I understand the struggle. But life doesn't always make space for the stuff that helps us to keep at our best. We've got families perhaps, or whether that's through blood or chosen family, and work, studies perhaps, and life stuff that gets in the way or interrupts our best intentions. We can get off track with our goals. So I'm here to be your anchor, for want of a better word. Let's call me a mirror. I was about to sing Velvet Underground to you then, but I'll put it in a playlist. But let's call me a mirror of your excellence and potential. A reminder that no matter how far away you feel from this idea of balance, that's in inverted commas, or let's try another one in inverted commas, having your shit together, you can always step back into the groove and find your way to take care of yourself. And you do not have to do this alone, because I made this creative coaching group for people like you. So if you're wondering if it's for you, is this for me? Well, this is for you if you want to feel connected with a limited number of other people on a similar journey of exploring self-care, wellness and creativity. This is for you if you find consistency and commitment a challenge to your wellness practice. I've heard you, I've been listening. That's why I made this. This is for you if you're interested in learning about and deepening how to apply Ayurvedic principles to your own self-care and creativity, and with that, your life. Sorry, I promised I wouldn't do that anymore, but here we are. I just can't help it. It's habit now. This is for you if you want real life tools to explore how you can align with the season so that you can feel better physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on. And this is for you if you enjoy creativity as a tool for empowerment and freedom, but there's no experience or practice necessary here. This is about play and exploration. This is for you if you're ready to commit to a month of focused intention and action to create space, to show up for yourself, to feel better this season. There's loads more of these. So if you're interested, head to my site, dionne.space, to read more about it. But just to give you an idea of what this group includes, you'll get from me a weekly themed email full of prompts and links to your self-care pack. So your self-care package includes a free weekly exclusive yoga and movement video that I've made just for you. Also, a free weekly exclusive meditation that you can stream or download, and as well as a creative activity that will be explained to you. Also, you're going to receive weekly prompts in our private online group. There's weekly accountability check-ins, also in our private online group. And in that space, there is also room for you to ask as many questions as you need, as you like, and also space for you to share your journey if you feel like it. You'll also get loads of practical tips, resources, and inspiration. And there is also an option for those interested in adding on your own personalized one-to-one coaching session with yours truly. That's me, if you want, but there's no pressure to do that at all. Just for those who want it, who want the extra support. And that personalized one-to-one coaching includes unlimited email support with me, as well as a private call, which you get recorded and available to you in your own private space on the interwebs. So if that sounds interesting to you and you're kind of curious, or maybe you've got that little call in your gut saying, yeah, I want to be in this space with like-minded people and like feel supported and nourished as we step into autumn, so I can be set up. Yes, autumn. Then head to the show notes or directly to dionne.space, where you'll get all of the information and you can sign up for the program. There are limited spaces. I'm not saying that to try and sell, but just because I know people get upset when things sell out, or when they feel that I haven't warned them that spaces are limited. So I do want this to be a cozy space. I mean, I have thought about just making it open for a lot of people, but I just feel there is real value in having intimate space, not only for you guys to kind of get the most out of the private community and sort of get to know other people if you want to, because I really feel that's a really nice part of this journey, like feeling connected, but also so I can give ample attention and love and support to everyone in the space. So all of the details will be found on my site, dionne.space. There'll also be a link via the show notes, so ifeelforyouPodcast.com, and I really, really hope that you will join us for October Self-Care Fest. Yes, that was me clapping. Sorry if that was surprising. I really hope you stay well and warm during this shape-shifting time, the autumn equinox. I really hope this podcast and the show notes with extra memes and playlist and everything else is useful, not only just for the transitional phase of the autumn equinox over the next couple of weeks, but also beyond as well. I hope that inspires you. So here's to us transitioning towards autumn in our own way. Thank you so much for listening. Speak to you soon. Bye.